Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. This week's cigar of the week is the Gurkha Revenant Corojo Toro Box Pressed.
But before we get to that, if you guys don't already know us, my name is Chris, and I'm the whiskey expert, but the cigar noob.
And I'm Adam, and I'm the cigar expert, but the whiskey noob.
And today, as Adam mentioned, we are finding the perfect pairing to this Gurkha Revenant. I don't know the rest of the name. Corojo Toro Box Pressed something.
You didn't memorize the whole thing before we did the Pledge of Allegiance in first grade? What are you doing?
Yeah, no, I did not. You know, it really makes me grateful for Dalmore 12 year. What a nice, neat little name.
Hey, there's some things in the whiskey world that are like I'm thinking of we've got one of these potentially in the lineup today, but
Yes.
like the company, the bourbon, the finish. When there's a finish, it's a long name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or like a feature that they want to make known, like one of ours today is bottled in bond. So you throw that onto the end of it, and now it's super long. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
I agree with
And
you
like
there.
theoretically, we could not name the size, and it would really help. Like this is the Gurkha
Yeah.
Revenant Corojo. Like boom. You don't need the
Right.
Toro or the box press. Like yeah, I did go a little, much on it. Like we couldn't even fit the box press. You guys can see on the video, if you're on the video version and not the audio, you can see we didn't fit it on the bottom of our little page here. But I'm super excited for this cigar. This is the first Gurkha that we've had, and Gurkha is an interesting brand because a couple years ago, probably about 5+ years ago now, I think, they had a little bit of a construction and quality control issue that really, really like tarnished their name. But recently, over the past 2 years, I've been having some of their cigars, and I've been like, okay, okay. I'm seeing, I'm smelling what you're putting down. I'm smoking what you're rolling.
Yeah.
I think they still
Literally.
have great cigars, and yeah, literally. But they've got great cigars, and I think they're now an underrated brand, is where I think they are. They're still huge internationally, but in the US, their name is still a little tarnished, and I think they have some great cigars, a lot to offer. So this is the first one we are going to do, but we've got some different ones that help you guys kind of experiment with some Gurkha too. If you've experienced kind of the same, news, I guess you could say, in the cigar world or from other cigar influencers, pages, whatever. But I smoked this. They decided to join the Perfect Pairing Club. I smoked this probably a month ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am so excited to have this on the podcast. I'm so ready. And then I smoked the other two Gurkhas that we've got coming up in the upcoming months, and I'm like, oh yeah, like Gurkha's ready.
I'm with you, and I'll get more into it with the noob review after we do the trivia, but I'm excited because it's not heavy, but it's got a lot of flavor to it. So it's like we don't get that a lot. Usually it's either mellow and not very heavy, or it's heavy and also has a lot of flavor to it. This is like easy going, but also a ton of flavor. So I'll get a little bit more to it with the review, but go ahead and do the trivia first for those who are just dying to know what it is.
Yes, the trivia question for this week. It's a tough one because it's a little bit of an insider secret. But those of you that have been paying attention or even know the cigar world a good bit, you may know. So there is a hack in the cigar world, and this is a true insider hack. So pay attention. How can you get 50 cigars for less than $7 a piece? There's a very specific hack in the cigar world that when I figured it out, I was like, oh, because they're like pretty good cigars too. So I'm like, all right, that's all I'm gonna say because I don't want to give away too much. But yeah, how can you get
Is
50 cigars for less than $7 a piece?
Is this as simple as like you buy a bundle of 50 of something? Like there's a brand that sells a 50 bundle?
No, those are available. I will say this
Okay.
is not a JR hack. This is not
Okay.
a JR Cigars or Cigars International online hack. Yes, you can go buy naked cigars from JR Cigars for probably $2 a piece or whatever. But we're talking about different brands, big, boutique, a giant mix of basically all of them are going to be different as well. So it's It's like the greatest variety pack that you could ever imagine for less than $7 per cigar.
Okay. Okay. Now, I will jump into my review because I'm really excited to talk about this cigar. One little thing that I don't think I've mentioned on the show before. So here's a fun fact. Gurkha was the first ever real cigar that I ever had. I had like little Tatianas that we've talked about, maybe acids, but I hadn't had like a full size, let's say Toro or Robusto cigar. And a buddy bought a variety pack of Gurkhas, like one of like the 5 or 6 packs, and was handing them out at a bonfire. And I smoked one, went home that night, got on one of those sites like Cigars International or JR, one of those, and just bought the cheapest thing I could find and got like a whole bunch of these cigars. And after that, I was pretty much hooked. And that was before I was really into whiskey, actually. So fun fact, Gurkha has a special place in my heart, at least in that regard. I actually haven't smoked it very much since then. Right off the bat, this was a delicious first few puffs. I was like really into this immediately. You get some spice notes, but not like burning spice, more like baking spice, like maybe like a cinnamon. You get a nice amount of body, a nice amount of volume of flavor, but you don't get like a burn or a harshness. There's not too much of a black pepper. Maybe there's a little zing to it, but nothing crazy. And like a little bit of wood undertones, I would say. Like right off the bat, the cinnamon and the wood undertones really popped out to me. And it's just pretty different from anything I've ever paired before. So I'm excited to get into the pairings.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very accurate little description. So props to you, cigar noob.
Taking off my hat that I'm not wearing.
But the way I look at this cigar is it's what I want out of a Corojo. We do have another Corojo coming up. So I'm intrigued to see kind of like in this specific month as well. So like in your cigar of the week pack, if you're a part of the Perfect Pairing Club for August, you guys got 2 Corojos. This one and another one from CLE Cigars. So you're going to be able to experience a little different Corojo. If you wanted to smoke them at the same time, we do have 3 packs available that are pretty cheap, $24.99 for 3 packs. If you want to, make sure you can experience them by themselves as well, so you can go on the website and do that. But this is exactly how I want a Corojo to taste. Like in my opinion, this is how Corojo goes. It should be medium, and it should have bold flavors, but it should be approachable. Like that is my definition of Corojo.
Now, let me ask this before we get into the pairing. Maybe it'll, actually, I won't give you some time because you're going to have to answer it. I always thought Corojo was like dark. Why? This is like not very, like at least in color, like visually, I thought it was dark, and this is not very dark. Am I just way wrong, or are there different types?
I mean, there's definitely different types. It all depends on the company and how they process that tobacco. If they process the Corojo leaf a little bit more like a Maduro, then that's going to be, obviously a little darker. But most of the time you're going to see, like between medium to like, how do I say this? Most people don't know like the cigar colors. Like there's Claro, which is Connecticut's. We just call them Connecticut's, but that's really a Claro color. And then there's like Colorado this is a little bit darker than a Colorado. I'm trying to think of what's between.
So is there like such thing as a Maduro Corojo or Corojo Maduro? Or is that 2 totally different things?
No.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, like, Corojo is a specific type of leaf. Maduro is how you process it. But it may be something. This may be a gap. I don't know everything in the cigar world, so I'll just go ahead and say that just to make sure I mean, if you're a cigar snob and you want to go ahead and comment to boost our algorithm, please feel free to hate on us. Go ahead, comment below.
Right.
But, the other piece is like maybe it's something about the Corojo leaf that can't be processed into a Maduro. It ruins the flavor. There's possibilities there. But like I would say on average, a a Corojo is medium to medium full.
Okay.
Body wise.
That makes sense. I'm thinking specifically, and maybe I just need to look it up. Maybe I'm picturing it wrong, but I thought like Camacho's Corojo was a lot darker and a lot spicier. But also, I had it when I was way earlier into cigars, so it might have been like everything was spicy to me back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that could very well be.
I'd have to look up the blend again. I don't have it in front of me, and I don't have it memorized, so I apologize for everybody out there. But I'm pretty sure this is a Nicaraguan Corojo, whereas what we're going to have with the CLE Corojo is that is a Honduran Corojo. So there's two like, it depends on the location. I can tell you the Honduran Corojo has a little bit more spice than this.
Oh, okay. That could definitely be playing a factor then. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you jump into the tasting here because I feel like I have monopolized the time. But hey, I think that was pretty valuable, actually. So tasting number 1 that we've got here, we've got Cayeya Tequila. This is their Anejo Tequila. And I actually started sipping on it before I even lit up the cigar just because I wanted to get an idea of it. I didn't have time to sit down and try it before this podcast. And it is a super unique tequila. Okay, really tasty. Wild flavors going on. There's definitely the minerality that you get with some añejo tequilas. There's a little bit of the oak, there's a little bit of the oaky undertones, but it actually doesn't lean too hard into the oaky flavor. And not a ton of like the lime or the citrus that I normally get. It's more in the range of that kind of minerality with a little bit of oak. Now, here's what I'll say about the pairing. I'll give you a little time. Sorry, I was monologuing here to buy you some time. Because it took me a little bit of back and forth. And here's what I think I am tasting so far. I think it's complementary. I don't think it's like wildly complementary. Like they're both just exploding. I don't think it's like that. I do think everything that I was tasting about the cigar got elevated. Like it was almost like there was just more body to it. Like I could taste it easier without trying so hard. The tequila has this note to it. So this Cayeya I've never had before, and it had this note that I'm like, I can't figure out what that is. It tastes good. I don't know what it is. Then I jumped over to the Gurkha Revenant, puffed it, jumped back to the tequila, and immediately I was like, that's green apple. So it revealed to me what I was tasting in the tequila just immediately. And that to me is a good complementary pairing because it's like the cigar revealed what I was trying to taste in the tequila elevated what I was tasting into the cigar. For me, that's through and through a true complementary pairing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're pretty accurate on that. Okay, so this is a heavy tequila. We're talking 104 proof.
Whew, I didn't catch that. Good point.
Yeah, you don't usually see that in the tequila, and that's what I was getting initially in the pairing is like something's a little too strong in the tequila for the cigar. But to be very clear, when you drink the tequila Cayeya Anejo here, and then you go to the Gurkha Revenant, holy crap. That Gurkha Revenant is bursting with flavor. Beautiful. You get less of the Corojo spice, but all of those subtle undertones that you're getting when you first light up the cigar, like a little sweetness almost, but just like beautiful wood notes, beautiful, like, I'm going to say like light leather notes almost, maybe even like a heavy hay note. Like it's a light leather and a heavy hay. Like
I like
it's
that.
truly medium bodied. All of the medium flavors is all I'm going to say. And the Gurkha Revenant get exploded. Like it definitely elevates that cigar. But then going from the Gurkha Revenant back to the Tequila Cayeya Anejo, it definitely takes a second. I can see the green apple, but only after you set it. That is, a little bit more of maybe your expanded palate terminology. But I will say it's definitely getting impacted, but I think this is on the border of complementary and antagonistic for me, only because of how impacted the cigar is and how little impacted the tequila is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. I'm actually surprised by it. Before you said that, I would have almost leaned towards the tequila I thought was being more impacted, but I think this goes back to You smoke more cigars. I drink more whiskey, but, you know, drinking liquids and tasting them. Two different ways to use your palate. Maybe that's what it was. But, and also I'm very used to higher proof stuff. Although today I bit my tongue and it is just bugging me so bad with these tastings, but I'm suffering through it for you guys. It's hard work, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, it's hard work. It's hard work. But I will say, like, overall, I mean, it's a good pairing. It's one that I would be intrigued to see how it develops over time with the cigar. And it's something for anyone out there that's going to go ahead and buy this Tequila Cayeya Anejo. If you're a tequila guy, by the way, holy crap. Phenomenal tequila. Like,
agreed.
And if you're a tequila and a whiskey guy, well, Añejo you should already know is where you should go, but this is like gold. Like liquid gold. I mean, it looks gold, but it's also liquid gold. I mean, it's definitely amazing. But yeah. I mean, I would say good pairing, but nothing to write home about.
We might be getting into something to write home about.
Okay, I was gonna say, I just saw your face. For those of you that are not on the YouTube, first of all, go ahead and subscribe. But second of all, if you're on the audio in whatever version you are, Chris took a little jump ahead with the next pairing, and his face looked like he just happened upon his favorite whiskey of all time. So that was
I've only gone back and forth a couple times, but if it is going the direction that I think it's going, I'm very excited. The last thing I want to say about the Tequila Cayeya is, if I had to average out what you said and what I said, I think what's happening in a very general high-level sense is the two are kind of taming each other. Those medium notes are coming out in the cigar. Tequila is a pretty strong tequila, but at first I couldn't tell what I was tasting. The cigar almost tamed that strength where I'm like, that's green apple. Like, it came through a little bit more. So I think they're playing with each other in terms of them both being kind of medium. They're kind of taming each other. And so their undertones kind of come more to the surface, I think.
I would agree with that. I think that's a great little description.
Now, I will give you some time to start on tasting number 2 before I jump back and see if I'm tasting what I think I'm tasting / what I hope I'm tasting. So tasting number 2, we've got Virginia Distillery Company's American Single Malt. This is their cider cask finish. And I actually have not had this before. I had it like one time before, I should say, but I didn't know it well, going into this. What I did do was I tasted it about a week ago, just one glass of it to get an idea before we got on the show. And I was immediately like, this tastes scotchy. Like, that was my brain was like, this is very scotchy. Not like smoky peaty scotch, definitely not. But like the very malty, a scotch that has a bright fruit note to it. Oh my gosh, monkey shoulder that I love. How can I not remember the name of it? It reminds me of that. It reminds me a little bit of a Glenfiddich.
What's the Brulotti we had a little while ago?
Yes, Brook Laddie, the classic Laddie. It also reminded me of that. Totally agreed.
Win for the whiskey noob.
Yeah, that's a win, actually. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I mean, that's where my brain goes with this one. That being said, I thought this is a cider cask finish. I'm wondering, like, I'm not seeing those notes as much. Maybe they're blending into the barley. And then I hit the cigar, and I only went back to it once. But I thought, whoa, this cigar brought out that cider cask finish like no other. Now, this is 93 proof, and they've got a little blurb on the back about it. Let me just run through what exactly we're tasting here. It's on this side, isn't it? Yes. This American single malt spends years aging in ex-bourbon barrels before robust finishing in luscious French Calvados casks, premium Virginia cider barrels, and Laird's apple brandy barrels. The resulting whiskey reveals aromas of honeysuckle, while baked apple and cinnamon brightly dance on the palate. So you got apple coming from a lot of different... I'm pretty sure Calvados is also an apple brandy. So lots of apple going on in this finishing process. Okay, I will let you react before I dive into what I think I'm getting.
I'm trying to figure out what you're getting. I'm definitely enjoying the pairing. It is maybe it was too close to the tequila for me or something, but like I can definitely taste and this is another piece, the cider. I'm not a giant cider guy in general.
Ooh, okay.
So like, like the little cider scene that happened for like what I don't know, it was like I feel like it was like 2 years. Like
Mm-hmm.
cider got like huge, and like
Yes.
people thought it was gonna be like I don't know if they were called cideries, but like like
Mm-hmm.
breweries. Like there was cider places just popping up left and right, and I was like, is this gonna become a thing? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then it didn't. But uh, I'm intrigued. I think there's a lot of complexities going on. It makes the cigar even lighter than what was going on before. But the other piece is I don't know what it's doing to this whiskey at all yet. Like I can't figure that part out.
Okay. Let me give you a tip here. Do you have water with you today? No, you don't. Okay, that's fine. I would say set the cigar
That's
down for
yeah.
a second and take a few back-to-back sips of the whiskey and then puff and then go to the whiskey. Because I think you're probably tasting what I'm tasting, but not comparing it to what it tastes like without the cigar. So let me just reveal what I'm tasting. The finish got insanely present all of a sudden. Like when I first tasted this, I thought, yeah, this reminds me of that Bruichladdich that we had on the show, which doesn't have a cider finish. Like it doesn't remind me very appley. I puffed the cigar and went back to it, and I was like, apples and cinnamon right away, full force. I mean, like apple pie. Like it almost reminds me a little bit of like apple pie moonshine because there is that alcohol note to it. But that note of it is just so elevated compared to what it was before I had had any cigar when I was just drinking it like a week ago, like I said. And there can be a little variation in my palate condition there, but for sure, I feel like the Gurkha Revenant, when you pair it with that Virginia Distillery Company cider cask, all of a sudden that cider cask is cranked up to 11. Suddenly you're getting apples and cinnamon and apple pie that I personally didn't get before.
I think if I had to guess that there is a gap going on here that is more palate based than anything because I think it's the unknown cider cask. Like I don't think my palate knows what it's searching for. So I think there's that element. It feels I like this one. I mean, I'm really probably gonna chalk it down to like just incompetence in the whiskey world. Like and I'm just trying to be very honest with everybody out there. Like
Absolutely.
I the cider is like barely there for me in this
Mm-hmm.
whiskey. But it brings out brighter notes in the cigar, which makes I mean that's clearly the cider cast that's going on.
I think that like also the cinnamon notes in the cigar are coming out. Like there's a cinnamon note in the finish, but I also feel like you said the cigar got lighter. It's like those lighter notes, like the sweet baking spices, not the harsh stuff. Like I feel like those are coming out a little bit more too, and that's that interaction with the cider cask.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do notice some cinnamon in the cigar. I'm noticing that appley, vibe from the cigar a little bit. Um, and in terms of what the cider can present. Um, yeah, it'll be interesting, and maybe I mean the truth is too. This is my first ever cider cask. I have
Mm-hmm.
had it by itself, but I've never really had it. I mean, like when I had it, probably the two times before this episode, just trying to like taste it. I don't know if I was focusing enough, maybe on the cider cask. Like maybe I should have had this, and like we had the port cask a couple weeks ago. I should have focused on like maybe go back and forth and do like almost a flight of like, okay, what's different? And like had the Cuvée cast too, because we've had a couple of Virginia Distilling Companies stuff here.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, what are we having? But yeah, that's what I'll say. Before we dive into pairing number three, all I want to say is whatever quality control issue that Gurkha had before, it no longer exists. Like this
Yes.
ash is perfect. Like the burn line may be a little off, whatever. Like I do have a fan in here. It's still July when we're filming this, almost
Mm-hmm.
August. Um, so we are a little hot, but I mean, you talk about like barely any inconsistencies in the ash, and then also like when I had it the first time, that was the one thing that I noticed with this specific Gurkha Revenant. is the ash held like for half the cigar. And I was like, because I
Nice.
wanted to give it its true test before, we gave it to everybody else. And I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, I'm proud of this cigar being the cigar of the week for sure.
Yeah, I wish you said it like 10 seconds earlier because I just manually ashed because I didn't want to accidentally ash on myself. But it was super long. Like my first ash, I purposefully knocked off the cigar. So I mean, it was a good solid ash on there. Um,
Yeah.
I do
You
want to
got to
jump
show
back
us
to
that
what.
ash, Chris.
Yeah, I gotta show that ash before I smack it off of there or whatever. but but I wanted to jump back to what you said about the flight of Virginia Distillery Company stuff. Let me be clear, guys, they're not paying me to say any of this. I really enjoy their stuff, and I've been honest about that on my socials as well. That's an excellent idea because I think one of their really strong suits is showcasing what different finishes do to single malts. And I think you'd learn a ton if you did a side-by-side of this with their port cask, with their cuvee cask. We've also got their Cabernet that we're going to have on the show here soon. That side-by-side for you and for anybody listening who's curious about whiskey, I think would teach you a lot about the different finishes of American single malts. And I actually just posted a video as of the recording of this last night about that. So about the 3 different single malts, and one of them was Virginia Distillery Company. So jumping into our next pairing that we've got here, we have an infamously long name, like the cigar that I just mentioned. We've got Hard Truth's Sweet Mash Wheated Bourbon Bottled in Bond. So it's also kind of a long name. This comes from Hard
Yeah.
Truth Distilling. We've had them on here before. I don't remember if we've had just a straight up bourbon from them on here before. I think we've had that Amberana finish, and I don't remember if that's bourbon or if that's rye, to be honest, with the Farmer's Reserve.
No, the Farmer's Reserve is the Amberana finish, and then the rye is the rye.
Okay. So that's still Amberana finish. This is a straight up bottled and bond bourbon from them. If I'm not mistaken, there's 0 finish on here because it'd have to be on that front label if it was. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. And I don't think they could call it bottled and bond. So if they did that, I mean. So this is one from them that they sent me a while ago for review, actually, and I'm a huge fan of. I really enjoy the flavors that come from it. I haven't had it since doing that review, so I'm excited to jump back in. I'm actually going to clean my palate off a little bit before I do that. But if I remember correctly, so it's bottled and bond, so it's 100 proof. It had really nice, it was the sweet type of bourbon. It wasn't like the bourbon that's like spicy and oaky. It was like it has some like caramel and it has some like sweet sugar stuff going on with it, if I'm remembering correctly. So I'm going to jump back into it.
Yeah, I'll give my little whiskey noob review on this whiskey for sure because all right, here's where I'm gonna pull it too. Actually, I'm not even gonna look. So we got the Hard Truth Wheated Bourbon Bottle and Bond. Is that it?
Yes, except they also put Sweet Mash in the name there. Hard Truth Sweet Mash Wheated Bourbon Bottled and Bond. You could even say Hard Truth Sweet Mash Straight Bourbon Whiskey Bottled and Bond. If you want to, you could throw in the small batch and the non-chill filter that's also on there, but you wouldn't actually.
Okay, and you're making fun of cigar names. Like, get out of here. Like, all right, fine.
I mean, that'd be the equivalent of saying like Gurkha, Revenant, Sungrown, Honduran, Corolla. Like, you would never say all of that at the same time.
I said Toro box pressed at the end of this, and I didn't have to.
You did.
Bottles don't have different sizes. If
True.
they did, you guys would be screwed. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
What I'll say is this is a fantastic beginner's bourbon. That is my opinion. I noticed the caramel notes right off the bat. I noticed the wheated bourbon in general, I feel like is a great beginner bourbon, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. Perfect. Like that, it just, solidifies me so I can keep going. Yeah, that Hard Truth wheated bourbon, I think specifically though, and then maybe also I would add the Green River wheated as well, are great beginner bourbons to really begin to introduce the flavor profiles and opportunities and possibilities of bourbon. Like if you're drinking your Woodfords, you're drinking your Buffalo Traces, you're drinking your Bullet bourbons, they are complex, but they're also just they're bourbony bourbons, as you would say.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Absolutely.
See? All right. I'm just rolling here.
You're on a roll right now. I'm gonna let you cook, man.
I'm cooking. But these are ones that allow you to understand flavor profiles. Like I think it's just like, yeah, maybe you got into cigars with the, I don't know, Perdomo Champagne and the Macanudo White Inspirado. Like some very basic cigars. Cigar flavor, yeah, those are cigar-y cigars.
Hmm.
But not something that's complex like this Gurkha Revenant that's, the Corojo, it's providing a little complexity flavor while still being approachable. I think that's why this pairing for me already I'm gonna say I'm gonna go back and forth, go back through, and I did enjoy that Añejo, which I need to test again. But I think this one already, just one puff, one sip, and then taking another sip. This is probably number one pairing for me. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it early because I think they equal out each other in their respective categories in terms of the Gurkha Revenant Corojo, great medium introductory medium cigar. And then the Hard
Hmm.
Truth Wheated Bourbon, great introductory but medium bourbon.
I totally agree with you. And I think one of the things that really links these two is that they are introductory, but they're also complex. And like I said before, Buffalo Trace is approachable and it's complex. Well, this is a little bit higher end than Buffalo Trace. This Hard Truth Sweet Mash Bourbon is like, it's more craft, it's a little bit more high end, and that complexity really comes through. Like that's one where if you're a beginner, at first at least it's going to taste good, it's going to taste caramely, but then as you get better and better at tasting it, you'll still be able to keep learning more from it because it's complex. You'll come back to it and you'll taste different things. And I feel like this Gurkha is the same way, where I said in the beginning it's approachable but it has a lot of flavor to it at the same time. So I think they're really meeting each other in the middle there. Now, as far as the pairing goes, I haven't really focused on what's going on with the whiskey yet, which I need to do. It took me a second to really get the apple cider off my palate from that last one. So that's on me. Maybe I should have switched the order that we had these in. But I was working on getting that off my palate a little bit. I think the cigar to all three of these is adding that little bit of fruitiness, which is weird because the cigar doesn't taste fruity at all, right? But I've consistently said green apple, and maybe that's my palate tonight or something. But there's also a little bit of a fruity, or maybe with this it's more of a candy flavor, less of a fruit. But it's bringing out a sweetness to each of these whiskeys. And then the cigar with this pairing, I personally think is getting more of those deep sweet notes, like maybe a cocoa or a brown sugar, not like strong, 99% cocoa dark chocolate, but just like a mellow chocolatey flavor to it or something a little bit darker.
I would agree with that. I like that one. I didn't notice that one up front, but it definitely the chocolate is coming out of the cigar now. But more of a, and then I know this is a Chris comment, more of a cocoa than a chocolate. And I don't know exactly what that
That's
means,
fair.
but maybe cacao. Maybe if I say it like that, maybe
Right.
it changes it. But like it's not dark chocolate because it doesn't have that bitterness to it at all.
Hmm.
It's a sweet milk chocolate that you're looking at, but it's like a darker milk chocolate. It's almost like if if you were smoking this cigar and then you went to some Hershey's milk chocolate, that's what that would taste like. Like
If we
a
want to get
smoky milk chocolate. It's almost like that.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, if we want to get real specific with our Chris notes here, I'd say maybe it's not like a milk chocolate, like a chocolate bar. It's like brownie chocolate, where brownies aren't bitter, but that's a cocoa taste. It's not a milk chocolate taste. Is that a
Yeah, and
fair?
it's got a little bit of that burnt vibe, like the burnt
Yes.
end brownie. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Yes.
I'm with. All right, fine. Let's not
I'm
get too
bringing you
caught
over
up
to the
there,
dark
Chris.
side.
No. I ain't moving over at all. Um,
Uh-huh.
but here's what I want to say. I do think what's happening to the bourbon is it's becoming more of a Buffalo Trace, actually really close to a Buffalo Trace. I was going from cigar, bourbon, because I was so focused on getting the cigar off my palate with that cider finish that I was like, wait, I need some more cigar in my palate here to understand what's going on with this whiskey, to how it's changing. I think it really tastes like Buffalo Trace, which is weird. Like it brings the bourbony bourbon out of it a little bit more. And I think it on the cigar side, it brings the Gurkha Revenant less of the spice Corojo, but more of the medium bodied Corojo, approachable Corojo. It brings that out of the Gurkha Revenant, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
I'm with you, man, all the way. I totally agree. I think because what you were saying and what I'm saying kind of go hand in hand, because Buffalo Trace has those lighter notes, has that bourbony bourbon flavor, and then it has a fruitiness to it. That's one thing that I love about Buffalo Trace. And not like how do I explain this? Not like a dark fruit, but it's got like this light, almost candy or cotton candy note to it that goes with those bourbony bourbon notes, and that's kind of what this is turning into. I'll tell you what, I don't usually make blanket statements about the way things pair, but I feel like this cigar brings out these sweet notes as if, I feel like if you take a spirit and you put it with the Gurkha Revenant, odds are pretty good that the spirit is going to bring out a light sweet, like a fruit or a candy or something in that ballpark, because we're 3 for 3 on that happening with all of our pairings, in my personal opinion.
I would agree with that one. I don't know why.
I don't either.
I have no idea why, because when I smoked this for the first time and today, like uh there's no sweet note. I mean, like,
Right.
I don't mean that in a sense of like, oh my God, it's not sweet at all. Like it's more bitter than sweet. That's not what I'm saying. It's neutral in the
Right.
sweet bitter spectrum. Like it's more cigar-y, for lack of a better
Right.
term, than sweet or bitter. But I didn't see that coming in these pairings, and maybe that's why the tequila was throwing me off a little bit in the beginning, because I anticipated that being my number one pairing one because I love tequila Cayeya. I also love saying that tequila Cayeya, tequila Cayeya.
Great name. It
It's a,
is.
I mean, props to tequila Cayeya because it's fun to say, but
Mm-hmm.
like it is definitely a little bit maybe lighter than I thought, at least when it comes to pairings. And maybe, I mean, maybe totally in general as well. I mean, I'm gonna have to have it a couple more times. If you guys are in the Discord, make sure you hop in the Discord. Let us know what you thought of this cigar. If you had it by itself, in terms of like, oh, okay, this cigar was more along the lines of something that was, you know, like medium rather than medium full. I thought it was gonna be more medium full. I definitely didn't think it was full bodied, but I think maybe the tequila Cayeya is convincing me that it's not medium full. I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
true medium bodied cigar.
Yeah. And I think all the pairings kind of support that. Like when you put them with these other pairings, they, especially if you're pairing it with a spirit, I think might be what's happening. Like it's taming it and just keeping it in that medium. All of these have pulled out like the mellow notes that were kind of being hidden a little bit. So something about the way this cigar pairs, I almost want to just make the statement that this is like a highly pairable cigar, because like something's happening with each of the drinks that we're trying, and something's happening with the cigar that we're trying. I will say we're not even in the realm of ultra pairings, to be totally fair, but something's happening like every time. So it's like it's playing, it's just not like doing a full transformation, which some cigars just don't, or some pairings just don't. But it's definitely doing something, and that's what's really interesting about it. I thought I was kind of going crazy when we got to that third pairing, because I'm like, this has been so much light fruit with this pairing. Maybe the cider cask is just overtaking everything, but I don't think it is. I think it's just the cigar brings out those light, sweet notes. And you guys who've been drinking bourbon for a while, you know that a lot of them will have, especially from the corn interacting with the oak, they're going to have this like vanilla and sugar flavor to them that, when paired with the proper compounds in the bourbon, when paired with the proper flavor notes, kind of becomes a cotton candy or just a hard candy, or sometimes you go all the way to the other end and it's like stone fruit. And this brings out that end of the spectrum, not the stone fruit end, but like the cotton candy, the not sour fruit, but the sweet candies and sweet fruits like your apples, not your cherries or your plums or your peaches. Really strange, like really a strange one for me to wrap my head around, but very enjoyable.
Okay, that was too many fruits for me. That was a Chris. That was a Chris comment for sure. I was
I,
like, Okay, dude, we're gonna mention every fruit that exists. You didn't mention banana, but
I didn't get
whatever.
into tropical fruits. I could go through all those if you want.
I'm like, all right. No, I'm gonna be honest. I went all the way back through. I will say the cider improved as we went on. The tequila Cayeya did as well, which makes this a very even match here. Um, but I'm gonna make a blanket statement before we get into our rankings or ratings. This entire experience, there's something missing.
hmm
There is, I have no idea. I know that you're going to ask me what is the next pairing you're going to try with this cigar.
hmm
I just don't know. I'm like, there's something with this cigar because I love this is a fact that I know now, not only because the second ash on this cigar is also perfect. Like,
hmm
guys, just whatever preconceived notions, if you're coming from the cigar side of this whole thing, whatever preconceived notions you had about Gurkha, please just smoke the cigar, try it. If you
For
want a
sure.
part of the perfect pairing club for August, buy a 3-pack. It's only $24.99 and use the PPP10 code that if you didn't notice below and you're on the audio, you get 10% off just for listening. Use code PPP10 across the entire board of every single product on shopdreamercigars.com. You get
hmm
10% off. So use the code. Sure, like I want to know what you think, and please go to the Discord. It's in my bio and all of my platforms, and I believe all of yours as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So please go to the Discord, the Perfect Pairing Club podcast Discord, and let us know what you think of this cigar because I want to know how you guys are feeling because I think this cigar, I mean, one of the best cigars I've had in a long time.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here daydreaming about what I would pair with it. And I think I have a couple of answers. So, based on the pairings that we've had so far with the Gurkha Revenant, here's what I think I would pair with it. I'd try two pretty different things. The first is specific. It'd be the old line Navy strength American. Let me restart what I was just saying. I think those got to me for a second. It'd be the old line Navy strength American single malt. Got it out that time. That's better. Okay.
What a long name.
Yeah, okay, you got me there. Anything
Uh-huh.
with American single malt at the end is a long name because you got to have
Mm-hmm.
American single
Yeah,
malt.
get out of here.
All right, you got me there.
Toro box pressed.
Yeah, right. But I truly I would love to know what would happen with that because it's a totally different American single malt. It's got those oaky notes. It's got a little bit of punch to it. I'd love to try that. And then a super oaky bourbon. And I think maybe like a Maker's Mark with the stave profiles, like one of the Maker's Mark barrel picks that they do, private barrels with the stave profiles that are just really oaky. They have different finishes on them. I'd love to see how it interacts with that. Because I think that's the one thing not represented here would be something super duper oaky. And maybe instead of that, just like a super old bourbon. I can't even think of one off the top of my head. But like even like an Eagle Rare is not that old. It's like 10 years old, but it's got that real oaky profile to it. I'd love to see what this cigar does with that.
So I had one in mind, but I'm gonna concede to you. What was the makers we had early on? Was it 46?
Yes, Maker's 46. Yep.
And that was with the oak staves.
Correct. French oak. Yep.
Look at me. Boom. Whiskey
You're
noob,
learning,
point
young
number
Padawan.
2.
Yes.
But here's what I'll say, and I know you haven't had it as far as I understand because I had it recently. I was on a beach vacation with my wife, visiting her family, and we just decided to go to a liquor store and, have, a little write-off, try a different whiskey with some cigars.
Mm-hmm.
And I had well, gosh, George
Dickel.
Dickel rye.
Mm-hmm.
That would go great with this cigar, I think. I had it earlier this week actually, so I think like that one would go well. That Maker's Mark 46 with French oak staves, boom, I agree with that. And I would
Mm-hmm.
like to try either the Ardbeg 10 or
Ooh.
the Brulati Classic Latte. I think
Yeah.
because of how we mentioned it before, I think it would work well, but I don't know if it'd be different enough from the Virginia Distilling Company cider cask. But
I would love to know what the peat does with the cigar from the Ardbeg. That'd be interesting.
it would be interesting, and it's light enough that it's not going to overpower the cigar. We've seen that enough in the two. I think we've had it twice on
Yep.
the podcast. So I'll go ahead and go through my rankings because I know we're running out of time for everybody out there. My rankings here, I do have it set at for the Gurkha Revenant. My rankings are 1, you're sitting at the Hard Truth Wheated Bourbon. 2, you've got the Tequila Cayeya Anejo. It bumped up for me. And then at 3, I do have the Virginia Distilling Company American Single Malt Cider Cask.
I have almost the same. I have at number 1 the Hard Truth Wheated Bourbon. At number 2, I've got the Virginia Distillery Company Cider Cask. And then at number 3, I've got the Tequila Cayeya Anejo. So a little different there, but I think our rankings, our ratings are going to show some similarities if I had to guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also shows that I'm a tequila guy.
True.
There's that aspect as well. Like, did you get any of the? I know we're on a time crunch, so I'm sorry for everybody listening and about to finish their drive or whatever they're doing. But did you notice any agave in that tequila?
Not as much as the last
Okay.
that we had, which I think was their Repo, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah,
was.
the Reposado. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
Oh, okay.
I felt like it was an agave soaked in bourbon.
Oh, interesting.
Like it's almost how I view añejo, because I drink so much tequila that I always notice the agave pretty much every time, and if I don't, that means whatever additives they have in there is way too much. Which
Right.
this tequila Cayeya, I don't know for certain that it's 0% additives, but I know for a fact it's high end and they do a very good job. So that's all I'm gonna say.
Right.
But we'll go ahead and go down the line. Let's just start from 1, 2, 3 in order that we went in. The Tequila Cayeya for me was a very solid 7.8.
Wow. Okay. I was close. I had it at a 7.1.
I mean, I don't know how close that is, but it's still in the sevens.
We're in the set. We're both in the sevens, is what I.
It's still in the sevens.
Points off, that's when I'm like, something went wrong with one of our palettes or something, or we just have very different palettes in this regard. But both in the sevens, that's fair.
Yeah, very, very fair. And that leads me to the Virginia Distilling Company cider cask. I had a 7 flat.
7 flat. So I have a controversial. Hold on, let me type this in. I have a controversial ranking for the Virginia Distillery Company cider cask. I personally say it's a 7.5 right now. If it was fall and leaves were falling off of trees, this would be like an 8.8 or a 9. This is so seasonal because it's so apples and cinnamon to me. This pairing in the fall, beautiful. This pairing while I am sweating in the middle of July, not the greatest. You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough.
That's the thing.
Here's what I'll say. We got an Adam pairing rating. We got a Chris pairing rating. And then we got a quote with italics Chris pairing rating as well. We got 3 ratings here.
How would I improve this pairing? I'd have it in the fall.
I did go like way too deep on one of those podcasts a couple weeks ago with the whole winter, it's snowing and the fire. And
you did.
That's very fair. You're rubbing off on me, but not too much. Because this Hard Truth Wheated Bourbon for me did land at an 8.8. I think that was a clear outlier for me. It was very good, and I would highly recommend it for anybody out there, especially if you're new to pairing. That is what I would say. Like, you're gonna, you like whiskey clearly because you're here and you're listening and you're trying things, and you like cigars because you're here and you're listening and you're trying things. That is going to be a great pairing, not to notice the differences, but to notice like, wow, okay, the play, I think, is really what I liked.
Now, I personally had the Hard Truth Wheated Bourbon at a 7.9, but I will say I love what it did to the cigar. For me, I almost lost a little bit of the complexity, but I can see why that makes it such a good beginner pairing, because it did just taste sweet and tasted good. For me, I didn't get as much of the complexity as I get out of the hard truth typically. So I went with the 7.9 for that one.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, and what I appreciate about what you're saying is there's so much room.
Yep.
And that's what I didn't exactly leave with that weeded bourbon rating there. But there is a lot to play. Like we said, like there's so much potential in future pairings here. So I'll go ahead and get into the reveal of how you buy 50 cigars for less than $7 a piece. You join the Perfect Pairing Club. That's exactly what we do, guys. I mean, there's 50, it's 52 to be exact. So you got +2. Was a little bit of a plug, but still, like, I don't know if everyone listening has really even noticed or done the math like we have, obviously, because we're building these pricing models. But you're throughout an entire 52-week year, obviously, like your calendar year, you're trying 52 different cigars. And at the $29.99 price point that the Perfect Pairing Club is at, you've got less than $7 per cigar, and then you add on the PPP 10% off. I mean, you're looking at maybe even 650, 640, 630, per cigar. Where can you buy 52 cigars? Really good cigars. I mean, this cigar, I think MSRP is like 12 to 14. So like
Yes.
you're automatically getting double your value. So little plug,
and different cigars. I have to point that out. That's why I brought up the whole buy like a brick of cigars, because you can do that. But like these are all different, and we're plugging ourselves here. And I do have a real trivia question for those who are still hanging on, but we're plugging ourselves here. But that's because it is such a good value. We wanted to really highlight that. You're getting 52 different cigars. You're not buying a bundle of 50 unbanded cigars. So that's a pretty big distinction, I feel like.
Yep, 100%. 100%.
The real
what's
trivia.
your add-on?
I'll do it very quickly, but just to actually add some value for you guys, so you do get a trivia question. And I want you to try to answer, Adam. Maybe you'll know it, maybe you won't. I have no idea, to be totally honest. What proof is Evan Williams Bottled and Bond?
Oh, I have no idea.
All right.
Oh, no, that's a trick question. Oh, shit. Bottled and Bond is 100 proof.
Boom, you got it. Yes, I was wondering. If you caught on, Bottled and Bond is always 100 proof, guys. If it says Bottled and Bond bourbon on the label, it's 100 proof, always. So,
okay, for those of you in the Perfect Pairing Club, you're going to see the little bonus that Chris and I do after every single podcast, because we're about to hop off here, because everybody that's not in the Perfect Pairing Club, we want to give you guys time to get to your job so you're not late for your boss, or get to your wife if you're driving home or whatever you're doing. But I feel like most people listen to podcasts when they're driving.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know I only guessed that because I did notice the weeded was 100, and I was just like, all right, I'm gonna guess. I did not think that was the right answer, but there you go, bingo, 100 proof, love it, nailed it. Chris, this was a good one, man. I'm excited to try a fourth pairing with this Gurkha Revenant for sure. But for now, cheers.
Cheers.